sajivam sadaitam sadadhutam parijana saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Siradha Krishna Padam Saguna Lalita Sri Visakani Tamsa Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Enacharena Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharene Devasesa Sunyavadi Pasajad Satarene Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Astacharya Satasri Srimanas Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai Namacharya Sira Hari Ras Thakur Ki Jai Prem Chako Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to assembled devotees.
Hare
All
Krishna.
glories to assembled devotees.
Hare
All glories to
Krishna.
Sri Guru and Sri Garanga.
All glories to Sri
All
Guru.
glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Glory to Srila
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
So, I'm going to start the interview
Yeah.
by asking you about you specifically, because that is also interesting, you know, to know the
Well, we'll see what you ask and I'll tell you if it isn't.
yeah, I want to ask from the very beginning about. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have these, I forget what you call them. The kind of calcium growth that's very hard to sit in the water. These big bunions or whatever.
Is there enough light over there?
I think so. This is fine.
Did you record that kirtan?
Yes, I did.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's the important thing, the kirtan.
Yes, that's the most.
Oh, Krishna.
All right. So, you can actually tell us something about your childhood, how you grew up, where you grew up, about your family, about your anything you
I was
like.
born in Germany, 1941, and almost to the day that Hitler started his campaign against Russia, which I think was June 6th, something like that, I can't remember. But I was born May 27th, and I had a brother, older brother, he was 4 years more than me, and a sister, 4 years younger. My father was, my father's family, they were hotel and restaurant people. So he had a big establishment in Berlin. Entertainment and food. But as the war progressed, there was no flour, butter, sugar, so it collapsed. Business had closed down. And in 1945, when the Russians flooded Berlin, my mother, my sister, myself, we had to just walk out. Like telling Gadada, okay, you gotta go now with your wife. Take whatever you want. You gotta go. Whatever you can carry in your hand. So my older brother, he died because there was no food. He got typhoid. Horst, his name was Horst. And so my father, he was also drawn or recruited, although he was too old. He was already 45 years old. But in the end, they took everyone, young people, old people. And he was captured by Americans, put in an American prison camp. But because he spoke English, on account of his having gone with friends in the 1920s to America to carouse around like young men do, so he knew he could speak English very well without accent, and he was a very good cook and a pastry chef, and he was very old school trained. So they treated him very nicely. Anyway, when the war was over, those friends that stayed in America, he came back in the 20s, and some stayed. So they contacted him and they sponsored him to come to America in 1947. And then we went in 1950. So from 45 to 50, we were refugees for a while, and we wound up in a small village in a place called Massenbachhausen. So very, very, how do you say, simple living, high thinking, no shoes, and all that kind of thing. But it was actually delightful. I can remember when American occupation troops came. So, with their tanks and trucks, they set up a camp outside that village. But we were, you know, maybe 5 years old, so children, and we heard there were black people in this American army. We had never heard that there is such a thing. Oh, they're black people. So when they came, we actually saw them. We thought. So we were speculating like small children, maybe how they became black. Maybe they had too much coffee or ate too much chocolate. That was an innocent kind of thing. Anyway, in 1950, we, on a ship, Polish ship, Batory, we crossed the Atlantic and landed in New York, right midtown Manhattan or downtown, where the piers are. And these friends of my father, they took us to a place to have something to eat. And they had a television, which we only heard about it, that there was a box and there were the people talking, and we imagined in Germany what it is. How is that? So this place had a television, and it was behind me, and I was craning my neck to see that television. It was absolutely fascinating. Of course, fell off the chair. So I grew up in the first year we spent in Manhattan, uptown. That's called Germantown. That's where the Germans went, 86th Street up to 96th Street. That's where the mayor's mansion is called Carl Schultz Park. So I got into the habit of just wandering around New York City. And after 1 year, I could speak English perfectly. And our family moved to Queens, Astoria. And But I was very, how do you say, adverse to going to school. It was something about it. I had a real phobia. I didn't want to go to school. And I didn't go. I figured out that on the first day, if you don't sign in, you can, no one knows that you're supposed to be there. So I would play hooky the whole year. And eventually, of course, I got caught. So to make a long story short, then one year, my father, who worked seasonally as a pastry chef in very exclusive country golf clubs, during the summer in Westchester, upstate New York, and in the winter he went to Palm Beach, where the Kennedys and the Nixons and all the Trump. I don't think Trump was born yet. Yeah, maybe. He's 5 years younger than me, Trump. So he decided to take us to Florida for that season. So we drove to Florida, but because I was so city oriented and conditioned to city life, right, and the crowds around and wander around the city, do mischief, I found it really unbearable. And kids were into football and baseball and all that kind of thing, and I couldn't relate to that. So one day there was an incident where the teacher made some remark because I wasn't paying attention, and I just decided that I'm never going to go back to school today because they decided to take me home to punish me, right? I told my mom when I came in, I'm never going to go back to school ever one more day. I don't care what you do. You can cut me into little pieces. I'm not going back. Anyway, my father, he also tried to convince me. And they finally saw that I was determined. They said, okay, but you have to do something. So I was artistically inclined, so I thought, I'm going to be an artist. And my father said, no, you have to have some work. So I saw a sign, join the Navy, see the world. I thought, yeah, okay, I can do that. Let me see. I told my father, and he said, okay. And in those days, when you were 17, you could sign up. I don't know if they still do that. And the agreement is you do until you're 21, then they let you out. So in end of winter in 59 I joined. So I spent till 62, till the Cuban Missile Crisis started, and I was a ship's cook. So that's where I learned how to manage a kitchen and cook, and it was it was a great thing. A young guy, you get disciplined, you learn how to work in, how do you say, cooperation, harmony with others. You learn to chain of command, orderly, and hierarchy we were talking before. So after you finish boot camp, they send you to what they call a duty station. So I was put on a ship, LSD. LSD meant landing ship dock. They have LSTs, they open in the front. You see them in the movies, the tanks come out, the trucks come out. LSDs, they don't come on the beach, they stay maybe a mile or two offshore, and the back opens, the ship bows down, and these landing crafts come out. So anyway, you have to decide which department you want to serve in. A radio man, or yeoman, or engineer, or whatever. So I checked everything out. I thought everybody likes to eat. So even officers. So I decided, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I did. And so no one bothered to cook ever. They was like hands off the cook. Even the officers, they'd come on Christmas, Thanksgiving. Hey, Cookie, can you get the old lady a turkey? Yeah, don't worry, I'm going to take care of you. Anyway, after that, 62, I was discharged, Cuban Missile Crisis. And then I decided to go to art school, which I did for a while. And but I saw that this was a waste of time. So I was living on the Lower East Side. That was the place to be in the 50s, 60s. Everything was, it was a period where the upcoming generation, right? I don't know what they call them.
Baby boomers?
The war babies, the ones that were born after the war. Sort of, I fell between that, I was in between these two generations. You know, people that were born 45, 46, 47, like that. So it was a very, how do you say, exciting time for young people. They saw it as they're not going to do what their parents did. They saw that, well, this is futile. And they had some idea about free love, and the whole generation and perspective began. And Prabhupada came during that time. He came, and I was living in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is across the river from Manhattan. So, and artists, the most forward or progressive, were living there because it was the cheapest place to live at that time. New York had become expensive. And it was during that 65, 66, I came in the March of 67. And how I came was, I had a friend, Bob Lefkowitz, whose name was initiated name was Rabinda Swarup. He used to live with me for a short time, but he was a little, how do you say, eccentric. And then he disappeared. Next time I saw him, he came to my place. He said, you know, I should come and meet the Swami. And he said, the Swami loves everyone, he sings beautifully, and he'll give you some symbols. And I thought, Swami meant something like in the movies with a turban, you know, and he has a crystal ball. I said, come on, Bob, get real. And Prabhupada was still at Mishra's ashram at that time. He hadn't come to New York City yet. So this friend, he would come on occasion, and he gave me a little book, Easy Journey to Other Planets, which Prabhupada brought, a case full, little kind of green and yellow paper, and I just kind of tossed it in my car and forgot about it. And I didn't read it. And so within the space of a few months, my life really began to unravel. And I had a friend who convinced me to take LSD, and that just completely, how do you say, put me into a void. I lost all interest in everything. And then I was kind of like almost catatonic, just sitting in the corner. Couldn't go anywhere, couldn't talk to anybody anyway. Then I got it in my head, I got to read that little book, which was in a car that I had abandoned on 2nd Avenue and St. Mark's Place, which is 6 blocks from the temple. And so anyway, I went to New York. My car was still there. Windows were broken. It was trashed out. And I rummaged through it, and I found that little book, Easy Journey to Other Planets. And previous to this incident, or during that year, I was interested in the hollow earth theory, that there's a hollow, there's an opening, and there's a hole. And so the title of the book, Easy Journey to Other Planets, really grew on me. And I thought, maybe this will explain how to go to this place, this hollow earth. So I'm reading the book, sitting behind the wheel, and very deliberately I'm going to read every single page, every word. And I'm reading and reading, And at one point Prabhupada says, but you know how the yogis, they can transfer themselves to any planet they like to, maybe they like to go to the moon and so forth. But then he concludes, but all these planets are temporary. And even if you go there, you have to come back, or they'll be annihilated at the end of the... But if you come to the planet of Krishna, that's permanent and you never come back. And it just floored me completely grabbed me. And anyway, I finished reading the book and I thought, okay, I'm going to go to that temple. I walked in. I said, whatever I have to have, whatever it is, just tell me, give it to me. You know, and I actually didn't know what to say because how to, you know, they're looking at me like I must be some kind of a nut, you know, typical Lower East Side. They said, well, but do you have any money? I said, yeah, you know, just give me whatever it is. So they gave me some back to God hats, and in those days I don't think a entire back to God hat, because no one had money, so it was only half of an 8.5 by 11 page, stapled, and some flyers, which I had gotten a flyer maybe a month earlier to this incident on the Lower East Side. I was walking with my wife at the time, Himavati, or Helena Milaskevich, from Ukraine, and we heard this ching, 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 and the drone of a harmonium. I thought, what is that sound? And we kept following until we saw a circle of people, mostly sitting, but in the middle of that circle was my friend Bob Lefkowitz, and he was clean shaved, he had a clean white shirt on, and he was swaying to this music in the middle of the circle. When I saw that, I thought, wow, that is far out. To do that, you've got to be really somewhere else. This is incredible. And someone gave me a flyer, Stay High Forever, No More Coming Down, with philosophy, music, and it had listed a number of things. And spiritual philosophy, spiritual music, and the last item was spiritual food. I said, how can food be spiritual? So this line, so I kept that flyer, went back to my place, kept the flyer, I kept thinking, how can food be spiritual? And because I was rather, you know, a proudy person, I didn't come forward and ask like, hey, you know, I was trying to figure it out, but I couldn't figure it out. Anyway, so when after reading the book I go to the temple, I talk to them a little bit, and I asked one of them, I said, do you guys do yoga? He said, nah, we don't have time for that. Yeah. I thought, wait a minute, how is that possible? I thought this was a spiritual place. Anyway, I'm getting ready to go out the door, and all of a sudden, whoa. I said, one guy at the door, I said, how does that go, that Krishna, Krishna, Rama, Rama thing that you guys do? How does that go? So we repeated together about a dozen times. He said, yes, that's it, you got it now. And I go out the door, and at the top of my lungs, as if there was a fire somewhere, I'm chanting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And I do this walking all the way back to my abandoned car, which is 6 blocks. And as I'm walking, I notice that people, you know, they're just like writing me off, like this guy's a goner. You've seen people who are talking to themselves or shouting loud about, you know that the guy's a goner. There's no sense in trying to, you just kind of try to avoid, you know, having to have anything to do with it. So I was being I understood that the people were seeing me like that. And I thought, wow, I'm liberated. I'm actually free. As long as I do this, people are just, I'm in another place and they're there, and that was very clear to me right off. Then when I get to the car, I think, well, what about Helena? She's at home and home. I thought, well, I'll go back and get her some beads too. In those days, they put the beads in a plastic bag, loose, with the string. You get some string and a bag of 108 beads in the head bead. I still have mine. See, red ones. They had red ones, green ones, blue ones. Red ones, green ones, and blue ones. They were much redder when I got them. I mean, they were like cherries, right? They were really, I thought, wow. So I go in, I get another set of beads. Hers were, if I remember right, blue or green. Anyway, don't remember. But so so I thought, well, I get her some beads, and she can read this, and if she likes that, well, that's good. And if not, then I'll just come back to the temple. So of course, when I came back and I explained, she read a little bit, you know, the pamphlet that. And the flyers. She said, "Yeah, I think it's wonderful." I said, "Okay, let's." So we string up the beads by attaching them to the windows. You know, in those days you had upper window, lower, and a kind of fitting to lock it. So, and you tie the string there, and then one bead at a time. So, because I was an artist at the time, we had this habit. Every night we go to Walter's bar, sit and drink beer and talk, you know, art and whatnot. In those days, a glass of beer was 10 cents, and the third one you get free, and pretzels all over, and it was like a beautiful mahogany mirror, you know, old style, like in a Western movie. And Walter happened to speak German. Walter's, it's still there. Anyway, so, you know, this I got, there's no meat, fish, eggs, no illicit sex, no gambling, and no intoxication. So that means you have to stop the cigarettes. I didn't have any problem with the beer and the other things, but the cigarettes, I was absolutely addicted to cigarettes. Rolling, you know, roll your own cigarette, 10 cents a pack. Even in those in the Navy, cigarettes were 10 cents a pack for sailors. 10 cents. Now it's like $5, $7. Anyway, so I thought, how am I going to stop smoking? This is very difficult. And they told me, well, you know, whenever you get the urge, just start chanting, which I tried. But I thought, okay, then I'm going to stop smoking, but I have to have something interim. So the guy downstairs, he was growing pot in his room. So I asked, his name was Luke Faust, a friend of Bob Dylan's, and they used to sing over in the village. He played the banjo, and I said, I gotta have some pot. I couldn't stand pot, made me sick, but it was smoke. I said, well, you know, 2 or 3 times a day. So after 4 days, I was done. No more smoking. And every day I would go to the temple from Hoboken, and they would always tell me, no, you can stay at home, just follow the principles. And I said, no, you know, I want to join, or whatever you call it. And they were insistent that I should, no, you can stay at home and follow the principles, and it's not necessary to come. What I didn't know is that because I had a wife, there was no way that I could join, because this was, that temple wasn't even as wide as this room, and it was all boys. But they didn't know how to tell me that, we can't have women here. We're all brahmacharis. I figured it out later. But at any rate, so the second time I came, I took Himavati, or Helena, and we sat upstairs in Prabhupada's room, and they gave me what they call prasadam. It was like cut up some apples and bananas, and that was the spiritual food. And I think, oh, how's that spiritual? It's still, Anyway, that day, as I'm leaving, getting ready to go back to my place, there was a little kitchen in Prabhupada's place, just maybe hardly as wide as the sofa, right? It had a stove. And as I'm passing there, I see Achyutananda, who was later to become Achyutananda, or maybe he was already. His karmi name originally was Charles Barnes. He was a flute player for Richie Havens. So he's standing at the stove, kind of trying to clean it. And I stopped. I said, you know, you got to take the top off, because I was a Navy cooker. I said, you have to take the top off to clean the stove. You can't clean it that way. And he looks at me. He said, well, if you know how to do this, why don't you do it? I said, yeah, sure. So we wound up spending maybe 2 hours cleaning that kitchen from top to bottom, because it looked like it had never been cleaned. And, you know, that was my first service. And after that, so 4 or 5 days went by. And on the 5th day, they finally said, they're not going to get rid of this guy. And so they go in a huddle. Brahmananda, I think, was there. Gagamuni hadn't arrived yet, as far as I could remember. They go in a huddle, and then one of them approached me and said, look, we have a guy, Keith, they call him Keith, that was Kirtananda. They still call him Keith. He just went to Montreal to open a center. Would you be, you know, if you're willing to go to Montreal, that will work for you. I said, yeah, sure, you know, I was a Navy guy, I've been all over the world, I can go anywhere, it doesn't matter where I go. They say, okay, but they made sure to tell me, but you have to get your own transportation. I said, okay. So I had a friend, Floyd Feldman was his name, he was a huge guy, must have weighed 300 pounds, but he was a lawyer, he was one of these hippie, do-good lawyers. He was on Avenue C and 2nd Street. So I walked into his office because he had a car. I said, Floyd, I got to have your car. He said, what, are you crazy? I need my car. I need it for work. I said, no, this is different. This is for Krishna. He said, I don't care who it's for. He said, I'm not going to give you my car. Anyway, after 1 hour talking with him, I got his car. So I somehow or other, the simple, what do you call it? The simple principle of using everything for Krishna was very clear to me. So that day, after we left Floyd's place, because his car was stuck in the snow up in Connecticut, but he said, if you get it, then okay, he gave me the keys. So I go back, and there was a lady, a girl, her name was Geza Gursky, and she was being funded. Her family had money, and so she had all the amenities, the tape recorders and the record player and all the goodies that nobody could afford. And I started talking to her about Krishna. And she got all enlivened. I said, and we have to use all this stuff for Krishna. And I got a big blanket, you know, we're putting the tape recorders and everything in the blanket to wrap it up and take it with us. Anyway, the other incident was that I had a friend who lived in that building where Prabhupada, in the front part of it, not in the back. There were front and the back. He lived in the front, Archie Dukeshire. And this car was stuck at his place. So Archie had a Volkswagen bus, and I said, Archie, I want to pick up that car. And on the way, I'm preaching to Archie Dukeshire. That he was a real jet setter. He was, you know, selling marijuana to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones already. And that was his thing. He was really a jet set guy, very energetic and charismatic guy. So anyway, we're going, and I'm preaching to him about Krishna. He said, yeah, I know, it's the ultimate thing, but I still have a few things to do. I said, Archie, that's what Maya is, to think that you have other things to do. No, you got to forget about it and do this. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to open a bar down in Florida, right, where all these exotic people would come. And I'm trying to convince him, and he agrees that yes, it's the ultimate thing, and I'm going to do it, but I have to just do this one more thing. I said, Archie, that's what Maya is. So when we get to his place there, car's covered in snow, totally. I said, Archie, I'm going to show you that Krishna is so incredibly, believe me, I'm going to take off all my clothes and lay down in the snow and not be cold. Which I did. But he still wasn't convinced. Then I took, I don't know, 2 or 3 hits of LSD to show him that nothing's going to happen to me, because the only thing that happens to you when you take LSD is you see what's in your head to begin with. But I don't have anything in my head. I've got Krishna in my head. So, and I did take that LSD and nothing happened. So the next day, we're getting ready to go. So I said, now Archie, you know that this car got stuck and wouldn't start when we left last time I was here. But because Krishna wants me to have this car, I'm going to shovel the snow off, and I'm going to get in, and it's going to start right up. And it did. Of course, now when I think back on it, I would never do anything like that. It's stupid. But it did. And so Archie wound up not becoming a devotee. So he actually did go to Florida, and then he drowned. So I don't know what to say about that. But at any rate, and that car we used to go to Montreal. And in the last instance, they had a girl there. What was their name? Anyway, that was Jodorani. She had like a Polish name. And she was... Judy, yeah. I can't remember the last... You remember the last name? Anyway, whatever. It was Jodorani. And they saw an opportunity to basically shunt her off on me because she was a girl and these guys were all brahmacharis, and it was kind of awkward for them how to deal with her. But I didn't know that. And so they said, you know, we have this person, can you take her with you? I said, yeah, sure. So we're on the way, and at one point I said, you know, I'm really hungry, we've got to get something to eat. She said, no, we can't go to a restaurant or just do. But I have some chapatis. She had a whole stack of chapatis. So we ate these chapatis all the way up, right? And we come to the border and she doesn't have a passport. I think, how can you not have a passport? What's wrong with you? I was actually one of the oldest. Kirtananda was older. Rupanuga was old, myself, and Satsrup. Everybody else was like, you know, 18, 20. So, and I had done 4 years in the service. So I couldn't understand how someone could not have a passport. It was good. But anyway, in those days, I think they were very lenient. And we get to Avenue du Parc. I can't remember, 20. The exact address. But it was hard to find because it was just where you go, I think, underpass. So it was getting cold, getting dark. And finally we find it. And as we come in, Kirtananda is the first person I see. And he's got this stubbly, you know, he hadn't shaved, had a few teeth missing in the front. Oh, he said, oh, just in time for Krishna Prasadam. He had this peculiar way of saying Krishna. I said, oh, well, what is that? He said, hot banana milk. And my mind flashed back to Germany. When I got sick, my mother would make me drink hot milk with Kümmel. I think fennel seeds or something. Kümmel.
Chamomile?
Kümmel, no. The word is, they look like cumin seeds. Maybe they are cumin seeds.
Fennel seeds, the green ones?
No, they maybe. Anyway, and that hot milk always gets that skin on it, right? Which to me was, for some reason, it was something I just, so I said, no, I don't, I can't drink that, I don't like milk. He said, it's Krishna Prasadam. So he made me drink the milk, right? I almost, and maybe this is offensive, but I almost threw up because it was just a childhood thing that, something I found unbearable to swallow. But anyway, I did. And So the other thing was, the first days there, he says he's going to teach Himavati to cook, Helena. I said, no, you got to teach me to cook, because I had seen somebody make chapatis in New York, and I said, how did you do that? He said, well, it's Krishna's arrangement. I said, no, what's in the dough? It's just water and flour. I said, no, there's got to be something in the dough. He said, no, it's just water and flour, really. I said, why does it puff up? How do you do it? He said, it just does. It's Krishna's arrangement. So I wanted to learn how to cook. So when Kirtananda said, no, I'm going to teach Helena, I said, if you don't teach me to cook, I'm leaving. Of course, I wouldn't have left. But that kind of put him, he said, okay. So I learned to cook from Kirtananda, basic things. And the other thing was, when those first months, we never had enough money, because no one was doing Sankirtan. That hadn't happened yet. So Kirtananda, he decided that we have to go get a job. Me, Pradyumna. Yeah, just me and Pradyumna. Pradyumna. He came there shortly after I came. And the first job we had was putting leaflets under people's doors. But there's areas in Montreal where you have to climb the stairs. There's like stairs on every, right?
Yes.
Oh man, that was brutal. The first day, 2 days, all your muscles have cramped up, and the pay was next to nothing. But one funny thing was really funny. We were both shaped up, Pradyumna and myself. And Pradyumna was kind of tall, maybe tall like you. And to do this job, you go to like a place where, people who are vagrants, they maybe work for a day or two, a shape-up job, right? So we come in there, and there's this one guy, he sees Pradyumna and me with the shaved head and the Sika, and he gets up to him face to face, and he wants to go around and really get a good look at that Sika. And Pradyumna keeps turning. Anyway, finally the guy sees it, he said, that's a mighty fine haircut you got there, boy. So that was our first job. And then shortly after that, he got us a job in the bakery. And Pradyumna flipped out at one point, because he learned that greasing the pans was done with, lard, pig's fat. And he flipped out. So during that time, I kept asking Kirtan, I said, why don't we just go out and, just go out and chant, and we'll get money. He said, no, that's not how it works. I said, but if Krishna is everything, why doesn't it work that way? Come on. And I was accustomed to begging, because when I would play hooky, like I would ask some of my school friends, come on, let's go, we'll go to New York. No, I got to go to school. Or, no, we don't have any money. I said, I'll get the money. Don't worry, come on, let's go. So I'd stand at the subway and just ask, people that, I lost my lunch money, or I don't have enough money to get on the subway, I lost it. And within a short time, we'd have, a few dollars. In those days, a few dollars was a lot of money. And we'd go to carousing on the subway, go to Coney Island. So it's something that I knew how to do. And he said, no, that's not how it works. And I kept thinking, why doesn't it work that way? Anyway, shortly after I came to Montreal, which was at the end of March of '67, March, April, May, Prabhupada got a heart attack in end of May and beginning of June, I think it was. And he was called to attend, to take care, like be a secretary and servant of Prabhupada, who we still called the Swami. And so I was basically running the temple. Although Janardhan, he was officially the president, but he was a student in school in the McGill. I don't know if you ever met him. Probably never met him, no. But he was I think from Latvia. Latvia? One of those countries. And he was very bright. He could memorize a Sanskrit verse, after a few times. And he had some very intimate talks with Prabhupada, philosophical talks. So Janardhan, he was officially. And Janardhan met Prabhupada at Mishra's ashram. I don't know if have you ever heard the story, how he met Prabhupada?
No.
Prabhupada was staying at Mishra's ashram, and Janardhan noticed that there was this old man sitting off to the side, and he was mumbling something. So of course he was chanting japa, right? And so Janardhan had a room there, and one day Prabhupada shows up at his door. And he says, "So you're interested in Bhagavad Gita?" And Janardhan says yes. He's kind of, startled. And Prabhupada says, "So, do you know the purpose of Bhagavad Gita?" And Janardhan